Chapter 1. The Awakening and the Forest Dwellers.
Chip inserted. Checking vitals. Everything looks good on my end.
Great. Uploading scenario complete. Setting operating parameters complete.
You ready for this, Doc?
Ready as I'll ever be. See you on the other side.
Initiating Sarah program in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sarah program initiated.
Kalen's eyes fluttered open. His body was sprawled out on something soft and flat, and his mind fought against its return to consciousness. The gentle patter of rain played against Kalen's throbbing head, the sound growing to a roar permeated by an occasional thunderclap. Every raindrop was a wake-up call, and every peal of thunder prodded the dull pain behind his eyes. He sat up and assessed his surroundings, scanning the area with the pained squint of someone who had suffered a concussion. Above him, an ancient tree stretched skyward, its gnarled sparse-leaf branches doing nothing to protect him from the sudden storm. "This is great. I knew," Kalen said, grunting as he hoisted himself upright using the tree's withered trunk, "that I should not have trusted a black market sleep aid." The unfamiliar forest surrounding him sparked no memory of how he had ended up here, or for how long he'd been sleeping. Whatever odd scenario had transpired, it did not matter. He had to find his way home again, so he started walking. Kalen figured he had wandered a good distance into the forest, judging by the dense trees around him. He made a quick decision to head east. Sheets of falling rain pummeled him as he trudged through darkness, his path illuminated by the occasional flash of lightning through the dense forest canopy. Intense winds buffeted him as he walked, carrying the frigid raindrops that slapped his skin like tiny hands. His leather boots, sodden with rain, squelched with every labored step. Kalen tried to recall the events leading to his current predicament, but could only summon hazy images of dilapidated brick structures and a suffocating gray fog. The trees around him rustled, and when the wind shifted, he imagined hearing voices laughing at the absurdity of a situation. Shaking his head, he continued his journey. After a time, the rain subsided to a drizzle, and the forest sounds lulled Kalen's mind into a hypnotic state. He passed one tree after another, each a clone of the last. A lonely wolf call in the distance broke the monotony, forcing his inattentive mind to refocus on his surroundings. It proved too late, however, when the ground opened up under Kalen's elevated foot, swallowing him as he made a single, fateful step. Time became indiscernible during Kalen's freefall, cold wind rushing past the bookend ears of a frightened mind, his body tumbling end over end. Luckily for him, the hole was not fatally deep, but the ground below proved an unforgiving landing spot. He slammed into hard-packed dirt, landing on his back, and felt the air leave his lungs. A bright flash erupted behind Kalen's eyes, and the world turned black. The sensations were becoming quite familiar. Disorientation, temporary amnesia, and a slow recovery to consciousness. Kalen blinked several times to confirm his panicked fear the fall had knocked him blind, or at least the world around him had become pitch black. All he could muster were groans of pain as his body floated to an unknown destination.
"You're in for a mighty treat, boy," a sinister voice said before producing a downright fiendish chuckle. "We don't take kindly to you folk in our tunnels."
"Calm yourself, Tristan. It is not our place to judge the guilt of this boy," a second voice advised his brutish companion. The voice seemed compassionate. The young man found immediate comfort, but he did not know why.
"You don't know what you're talking about. One of these days your good intentions are gonna get you good and dead, Selwyn," the gravel-voiced stranger responded in a tone ambiguous of warning or threat. Walking in silence, the men continued their journey down a seemingly endless maze of corridors. Judging by the complete darkness and skillful navigation of the two men, Kalen guessed they had memorized every facet of the underground fortress, or perhaps they could see in the dark. After what seemed like hours, their trek stopped at yet another pitch-black and mysterious tunnel section. A split of light swelled in the middle of what he thought was another corridor. Kalen basked in the fleeting hope of waking from his dream, but his hope shattered when the gruff captor used the light's distraction to punch him in the gut. "Must have ate something his stomach didn't agree with," the gravelly voice said in response to Kalen's retches.
Kalen's eyes stung against the growing light, the space between two enormous stone doors, as he struggled to regain his breath. The dragging sound of stone on stone filled the corridor and boomed through his throbbing skull. Pure awe overtook him as the doors opened, and his heart skipped a beat. Beautiful. Kalen stood before the culmination of thousands of years of civilization, a city built underground below a ceiling of stalactites and luminous minerals. Stone houses and buildings surrounded a palace made of the same mineral embedded in the cavern walls. The palace radiated light. Its square walls supported a dome pulsating with blue energy surrounded by 4 massive pillars etched with great battles and majestic figures. The men were standing at a trailhead leading down at a healthy grade toward the city's edge.
Welcome to Anna Silva. It's the last thing you'll ever see, but even that's too generous.
The palace's soft glow provided enough light for Kalen to investigate his captors for the first time. Most strikingly, he noticed the 2 men were halflings, a foot or so shorter than himself, whose physiques were honed for strength and agility. The brutish, stocky man, Dristan, wore wrinkled brown pants and a grimy white tunic and had a long mane of black hair. A shiny scar rose obscenely from the top right side of his forehead and traveled down across his eye to the right of his chin. Reflecting the compassionate sound of his voice, the second halfling, Selwyn, was dressed in a modest blue tunic, his shiny silver hair and gray eyes accenting a lean, handsome face. Both men appeared middle-aged, at least to human standards. On their way to the palace, Kalen, Selwyn, and Dristan stepped onto Anna Silva's main street. Strangers swarmed around the halflings and the young man as they walked, some sporting curious looks, others spitting and yelling at the boy.
Traitor! Scum! All hail the dirty and ignorant Merok!
Shame and embarrassment welled up inside Kalen, adding to his confusion about the entire situation in which he found himself. Merok? Traitor? He had just arrived in town and had somehow become enemy number 1. Dristan and Selwyn do not seem bothered. This is a common occurrence, but why? Kalen sighed before turning his attention back to the city around him. Anna Silva seemed expertly planned, so each building faced the palace in a series of concentric circles. The buildings were separated by walkways and streets, which provided residents with enough space to live and work. Kalen could only discern which buildings were houses and which were shops by observing the flow of foot traffic in and out of each stone structure. As doors opened and closed, a warm radiance lit up entryways. He was in awe but held back numerous questions, fearing further retribution from Dristan. When they arrived at the palace steps, the 2 halflings released Kalen so he could stand on his own for the first time since falling underground. Dristan forced him up the steps while Selwyn led the way, glancing back occasionally with an air of quiet concern. As the men reached the doors to the castle, which was carved to symbolize the forest above, Dristan received a small instrument from his pocket, then blew a deep, earth-shaking, sustained note on a bronze whistle. The doors responded with lurches and grumbles, obeying the tone, and swung inward to reveal the inner palace. The palace interior showed no less extravagance than the decorations adorning the outside. A cavernous lobby with a marble floor stretched before them. 2 rows of columns rose from floor to ceiling a short distance from the walls, and an ancient carpet extended from the entryway to a massive door across the room. They continued forward. Kalen noted the paintings lining the walls to his left and right, depicting Anna Silva's past kings granted eternal life by the strokes of an artist's brush. Each king seemed massive for halflings, and wore the same relic upon their heads, a helm cast from silver with gold trim bearing an insignia, a silver warhammer below 5 golden stars. Fear washed over Kalen, brought on by the growing awareness of power emanating from the colossal door ahead. Emblazoned upon the magnificent golden door was a curious sight. A lone figure stood atop a high peak and pointed a shining sword skyward in triumph. In the valley below him, thousands of people celebrated an epic victory, the bodies of their enemies littering a chaotic battlefield. Kalen had little time to gawk before the door opened with an unnatural silence, given its massive size, and the view beyond temporarily cast its brilliance out of his mind. Before him, an intimidating halfling sat upon a throne bejeweled with the finest minerals in all of Anna Silva. The halfling rivaled even the largest of humans, his bulging stature and brilliant yellow beard only hinting at the power he held. One could not help but respect the king of Anna Silva at first sight. Kalen had no doubt even the darkest of enemies held a healthy fear and reverence for the ruler of the halflings.
Dristan? Selwyn?
The mighty king paused while the two halflings bowed and proclaimed their honor to be in his presence.
Who do you bring forth to me? Thank you, your majesty, King Caradox.
Tristan's scruffy voice sounded out of place in the king's company.
We have brought a spy for Merok. The boy was found wandering the woods in search of an entrance to Anasilva.
That's not true, Kalen exclaimed in indignation. Your majesty, sir, I have never even heard of Merok.
What is your name, child, and where do you hail from in Lethoria?
His powerful voice held patience and wisdom that revealed him to be a just ruler. My name is Kalen, and I'm from... Kalen froze. He realized he didn't remember where he had come from. In fact, besides his name, he did not remember much at all. At the back of his mind, he felt the answer struggling to surface, as if some force prohibited him from remembering anything. I don't know. It was all he could manage to say.
Ha! You don't know, you say?
Tristan was having a field day with Kalen's situation.
Don't you think the whole "I forgot everything about myself but me name" excuse is a bit cliché?
Quiet, Tristan, commanded the king softly, causing Tristan to pause mid-breath. Kalen wondered if the grimy halfling would pass out for fear of breathing too loudly following the king's reprimand.
The boy deserves a chance to prove himself, and the test of will has not been performed for many moons. Suspected traitors always reveal their true hearts during the test, but we have not seen many traitors lately. The stillness of the woods has caused me great unease.
His last words were soft and reflective, as if he had not meant to say them at all. Kalen's mind buzzed, and his body numbed with confusion and fear. He tried to fathom how he went from sleeping on the forest floor to being sentenced to an ominous test in the underground kingdom of Anasilva in mere hours.
Shall I take him to gather his weapons, your highness?
Selwyn asked. Kalen gulped when King Caradoc gestured approval with his large ringed hand.
Yes, Selwyn. The test of will shall begin in 1 hour.